you go. All right, so Copystand is what this is called. You should be taking some notes. This is course content, and I shouldn't have to hear people saying that thing in the corner that you use to take the pictures of flat stuff. I should hear you say, the Copystand. You don't have to use a polarizing filter when you're doing copy work, which is what we call this when you're taking pictures of other existing artwork. But it's not a bad idea. What it does is it cuts the glare. And so, you know, if you have one, you could put that on your lens. But like I said, it's certainly not essential as long as you have really good lighting. And y'all are in the black and white photo class. So with you, just so it's even illumination, you're good. But we're going to treat this as if you were taking pictures of images that had color as well. For one thing, you might be doing photographs of images that you've toned later. And so, in fact, oh, wait, there it is. I'm going to grab this picture of Joey. So, for instance, this image, it's got a little color to it because it was toned in some areas. So it was a black and white darker print, but obviously it's been manipulated. And I'm going to show you guys about using toner as well. That's going to be a part of your stuff. So the way this is set is so that you can, you actually mount the camera on here, and it screws in via a tripod screw, right, like this. You want it facing nice and perfectly up and down. You don't want it tipped on the copy stand at all. And I'm not going to do it quite yet because I want to talk about settings as well. So what about light bulbs in these things? Ideally, you're going to use light bulbs that are going to both provide exactly the same color temperature of light, 32K light. And that comes from the cabinet over here. I could turn that, but then I'd mess up my video. I'm gonna edit later. So again, if we're being super color correct, we're going to use bulbs that are especially made for this purpose. And so these are called ECA bulbs, and I see this has gotten a little close to the colored filter when someone was using it. These actual fixtures aren't anything in particularly special. You know, they're nice studio lights. I'm not going to say they're bad, but, you know, it's the actual bulb that goes in there that makes the difference. These are 250 watts, so they're pretty bright. And this type of 32K bulb, in other words, balanced exactly for tungsten bulb, they make them in 250 and 500 watt variations. Yeah, some bad little person. There's blue studio gel on one of them and orange on another. So I have some Windex in here. I used to have a thing of paper towels sitting out. These burn hot enough that you should wipe your fingerprints off after you screw them in. That's true for any incandescent light bulb. It's going to last longer if the oil that was on your fingers doesn't heat up the surface of the glass unevenly. That's what burns them out. That's less and less a thing that we have to worry about as LEDs and such become more and more the lighting source in our world. But if you're using these, this is where this stuff lives. And this is not totally related, but it's something worth explaining. This is Windex that doesn't have ammonia in it. If you're cleaning glass to put your artwork in a frame and it was inkjet printed, you should never use regular glass cleaner with ammonia. Even the little bit that's left on the glass after it's dried will damage that image over time. And so like good framing shops and stuff like that, they don't even use glass cleaner that has ammonia in it. And I don't use it in this room because there's inkjet prints all over the place and they don't need to get destroyed. Alright, so now after all that, let's see if these bulbs even work. We have a really clean piece of garbage here. You want to be good, don't you? So you would buy these specifically from like a probably a camera supplier, like we order from B&H. And if you're looking to get into having your own studio, LEDs are probably the way to go, but if you want to roll that way, you won't get so lighted. Like, you were in the firing line of that light. Yeah, you're like, oh, this just turned into a bad place to sit. So what I do is I just keep backing up from it and like looking. Like I want this and this to be equal distances from my art. I don't want them, like I'll look down kind of over to make sure that it's really going down evenly across. And then the other thing you can do is you can meter, if it's bigger work, 4 corners of the artwork to make sure the illumination's even as well. I'm going to turn down some of this other light in the room just to strain your eyes even more. I'm going to be a bad example and leave these lights on simply for the sake of the video and for Teresa seeing what's going on. Normally though, you should turn off all the lights except for the 2 lights that you're illuminating your artwork with. The reason is that fluorescent light is really, really sort of green compared to this light, and it will be really hard for your white balance to come out right if you do that, if you leave that other light on. So now what we want is to set up our camera, and if you're just documenting your black and white artwork, you might say, well, why don't I just shoot in monochrome? It would save space, I suppose, on the card. But you know, you could. Honestly, I do that when I'm shooting my graphic or my beginning design work and stuff. But it's up to you. If it's something like this, obviously you want to shoot in color, and just set the file size to whatever you want. I would not bother shooting in RAW in this case, because you're documenting something where the value range is already pretty under control. You're not trying to make big adjustments to this. We're trying to take pictures of what it really truly looks like. So you can shoot JPEGs for this. That's just fine. I set my ISO pretty much as low as it can go because I want the best quality. So I'm going to set it on 100. And depending on the use, if you're documenting for the sake of entering in shows and things like that, they probably don't want it to be the biggest size that your digital camera ever took, you know? Probably they'll only use something that's more like in the small or medium range. I tend to take them kind of more on the side of larger. You can always downsample them, right? And you're documenting your work, you kind of want it to be as nice as possible. F-stop does not need to be super high numbered because, again, it's flat, you know, as far as depth of field is concerned. Now, Mac, if you were taking pictures of 3-dimensional work using the seamless backdrop, like your product design type stuff, then you probably would want to, you know, fool with like, I don't know, F11 or something like that, so you can get it all in focus. So this mounts up here once you've got enough of the settings right to where you're not going to be completely annoyed having to reset them by climbing on a chair and looking like that. Get this as level as possible. Many cameras, once it's in picture taking mode, even have like I'm trying to remember, if you push the info button enough times, it'll go to a self-leveling thing that tells you whether the camera's level or not. More so if it's on a tripod aiming this way, but you know, depending on the model of camera. And so now, ideally, looking through here, I should simply be at the stage of raising or lowering this so that I have most of my picture framed up. I think it's about there. This particular Copystand, now I am going to take this off the little standy chit. This does have a little lock over here, and this thing is spring-loaded because this is from when this is meant to hold a big giant 4x5 camera for making really detailed copy work back in the library. That's where this came from. So hang on tight when you adjust it up and down. Like, don't just spin this knob to loosen it and have your face above your camera, because it's going up. I anchor a hand firmly here, and then I reach over and loosen that set screw so that I don't get slapped in the face by my own camera. You don't want that. There we go. And then the other tool I usually use, I'm not seeing, is there's a stool in this classroom usually somewhere. It might have gotten moved for social distancing purposes, but you know, if the work is big, this will need to go way up, and so, you know, find something you're comfortable climbing on. So now I just with the camera on, get my image in focus. There we go. And you want to take it so you get a tiny bit of border. Like if you're entering a show, they want to know that they're seeing the whole work. I was saying that earlier when we were talking about matting, you know, that you want to cut your mat so that you are seeing the whole image, not cutting in on it. If you don't have a good angle on the lights, sometimes the mat will actually cause a shadow on your piece, so just be real mindful of that if you did cut your mat in close. You want to dust it. This particular piece has a lot of dust marks just inherent to it, because that was kind of the point. You know, it's like about the document of the photograph is a document. You could dust that off. And this cockeye. There we go. What was the other thing I was going to show you? Metering. We have usually got a gray card hanging on that wall, but I'm not seeing it right now. So the other place you can go for the gray card is back behind the yellow lighting cabinet in the room here. In fact, this is the card that's supposed to be hanging on the wall by the nail. So now you can set your aperture and shutter correctly, because this is going to fill the screen. If you were shooting a bigger piece, you would want to meter over here, meter over here, meter over here, meter over here, to make sure that you have the lights arranged evenly. And if you get a different reading in one of those corners, you know that, you know, if it's lower, maybe the light's not quite aimed at it enough. If it's uneven, sometimes you can just back the lights up a lot more. Maybe you're just getting a hot spot because one of the lights, or both of them, are a little too close. I've also heard of people like aiming it so that this one is really aimed here, you know, as opposed to right in the middle. So you're kind of crossing the beams of light like that, and that can help you know even out the lighting as well. But me, I'm just going to set this right here. Got that ISO on 100. And where's my wake up the meter button? This is not my camera setting. Ah, it's actually right about right. It's funny. There. So, for instance, at f3.5 and a 40th of a second, I should get a good, perfect exposure, accurate, and all that. So now all I have to do is take it, without jarring the copy stand. And that's why this thing is so big and solid, right? If it was a little narrow stalk, when you push the button, it would shake. If I do have it up really high and I'm worried about shaking it, I set the self-timer for that 2-second interval and just take it that way. So this is a lot of setup, right? You're probably like, oh yeah, I don't even know why I'm learning this because I'm never going to do that. If you have a lot of work to shoot, let's say you're done with your senior show was, I don't know, in painting or something, or it was photography, but it wasn't digital, or someone in painting who has a senior show, and you can now make $75 shooting their work for them because they've got to have illustrations of it, and they don't know photo as well as you. This is really worth it, setting up like this, because it's really quick, right? There, I got that picture of Joe. I go and grab the next picture. As long as I do not change the distance of those lights, like there, that's perfectly exposed. I don't even, I just don't go through it and shoot the whole portfolio. So once you set up, it's really, really worth it. What would you do for big, giant paintings? You would put them up against that wall and aim these lights at 45 degrees at the wall and put your camera on a tripod and then, just aim straight on.